And Gene, the national nurses and other nurses, other groups around the country are calling, if I have this correct, are calling on President Obama to stand up for Social Security rather than to go along with the Republicans and the conservatives and try to hand pieces of it, chop it up into pieces and hand them off to the billionaires on Wall Street. Do I have that right?
You're 100% correct.
Okay. Tell us the story.
Well, first of all, we, just as others understand that President intends to focus on the deficit during his State of the Union address, and he should. But we want him to know as nurses, we don't believe that cutting spending during an economic downturn is the best course of action. And further, we're sending the message he shouldn't make Social Security or Medicare the scapegoat for high deficits. Right. The best way to cut the deficit would be to end corporate tax loopholes and the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he shouldn't be penalizing the working Americans.
Right, and bring our jobs home from overseas so that we now have people working at good factory jobs, paying a good wage, and paying taxes.
Exactly. And we're disturbed that the common wisdom, at least in Washington, seems to be right now that it's politically unrealistic to save Social Security completely on the revenue side. And it isn't true. It has a surplus. It's expected to rise to $4.3 trillion by the next decade. And we want to know where they get that idea. We saw a recent New York Times poll, and they said 2/3 of America support balancing the long-term shortfall by increasing payroll taxes.
Yep.
So raise the wage cap.
Yeah, and not increasing payroll taxes on the average working people. They won't see any increase. It's people who make more than $106,000 are going to have to start paying something into Social Security, because right now, if you make more than $106,000, every penny you earn above that $106,000, the tax rate, the Social Security tax rate, is zero.
Exactly.
It's not even like capital gains, where if you're a Wall Street mogul and you make your money as dividends or interest, the top income tax rate, instead of being 36% like it is for everybody else, is only 15%. It's not even 15%. It's zero.
Exactly. And we want him to know that as always, registered nurses are looking out for their patients, present and future. But we're also looking out for ourselves. RNs in particular lift an average of 1.8 tons every day.
Yikes.
And most people don't know that. We experience chronic back pain. We often face larger patient loads than we can handle. We're already working longer than when we intend to, and we'd be especially harmed by increasing the retirement age. People can't do that.
Jan Ross, co-president of National Nurses United, nationalnursesunited.org. Is your organization, or are you getting any feedback from the White House that they're hearing this message? Are you, or even outside of your own group, but do you see any messages in the media? I've just noticed a deafening silence, but maybe I'm missing something.
No, I think we're very concerned. It just seems to be a foregone conclusion. And so as far as if our message is getting through or not, I think it isn't just our message. Our message and the message of people who actually work for a living is not getting through. Right. And so we're going to keep it up. We even have looked at, in our discussions at our meetings, saying that we will not support any candidate who even talks about cuts in those social net programs. It's one of the programs that helped us get out of the Great Depression. We have a little bit of trouble understanding how things that are tried and true and have worked for years are on the chopping block. Yeah. It's a little difficult.
Well, I think that there's been, I know. I mean, I've watched it. There's been a 30-year campaign. It started actually long before Reagan, but it became, before Reagan, it was so far on the fringes that very few people heard it. And once Reagan became president and started actually talking about it out loud as a president, rather than as, some shortwave radio talk show guy on the fringes, or the John Birch Society on the fringes, as soon as Reagan started talking about it, this idea that Social Security was going to crash and burn, that Social Security was unconstitutional, that Social Security was terrible, that Social Security was socialism, that Social Security should be handed over to Wall Street, that Social Security is not going to be there when you grow up if you're in your 20s or 30s. Those ideas, which are all lies, or at the very best, arguable. I mean, I suppose you could argue that Social Security is a form of democratic socialism, like Norway and Sweden and France and Germany, but not socialism like the Soviet Union, which is how they like to characterize it. But the idea that Social Security is going to go broke, that it's the unfunded mandates are in the trillions. Well, with a small tweak, this thing will be solvent forever. I mean, it'll be solvent into the lifetime of people who are not yet even born. And it's like that message, the opposite message has been beaten into people for 30 years, and the mainstream corporate media keeps going along with it, which makes me nuts. Makes me crazy. So,
yeah, I agree with you. And our research and others shows this. One of the things they're talking about, raising the retirement age, which I said would be devastating, not just to nurses but to others that work for a living. You would solve far more problems if you would lower that age.
Yes.
Get more people out there working.
Yes.
There are people right now who are only working to provide, some of them income, but certainly for their medication insurance.
Yeah.
And otherwise, they would have retired a long time ago.
Yeah. I wrote an op-ed, and in fact, I should have made it a chapter of a book. I don't think I did. But I wrote an op-ed back a couple of years ago when the Cash for Clunkers program was going, called Cash for Geezers. And, no offense intended, I'm over 55. And so, what I said is anybody over 55 should be eligible for Social Security right now. What that would do is it would pull enough people out of the workforce that it would tighten up the labor market. Young people could get jobs. It would tighten up the labor market. When you tighten up the labor market, you raise wages. When you raise wages, payroll taxes go up. Those payroll taxes, of course, are Social Security taxes. They pay for the people who've retired. And I think it would work.
We couldn't agree with you more.
Great. Gene Ross, NationalNursesUnited.org. Thank you, Gene.
For audio and video archives, go to thomhartmann.com.